Hello students, I'm Mohan Kumari. After a long gap, welcome back to MK classes for biology. In the previous video, I have explained you about the types of epithelial tissue. So, in today's class, we are going to study about the other type of tissue, that is connective tissue, in the chapter Structural Organization in Animals. So, here we go with the connective tissue. So, connective tissue, which is said to be the most abundant and widely distributed in the body of animals. So, connective tissue, which is widely distributed in the body of animals. As the name indicates, so connective tissue which will connect or link and support other tissue or organs of the body. Let us see the types of connective tissue. So connective tissue classified generally into three types. So one is connective type proper, and the second one is skeletal type, and the third one is fluid type. So in the connective type proper, the tissue which contains soft and fibrous matrix, and in the skeletal type which contain dense mineralized matrix, and in the fluid type which contain fluid liquid matrix. So these are the major three different types of connective tissue. If we see in connective type proper, in turn, which is made up of loose connective tissue and the dense connective tissue. So skeletal type, which consists of bone and the cartilage, and the fluid type of connective tissue, which is made up of blood and lymph. Let us study one by one in detail now. So here we go with the first one, that is connective type proper. So as I told you, connective type proper, which is a binding tissue, and it is of two types. That is loose connective tissue, and the other one is dense connective tissue. In the loose connective tissue, which consists of areolar tissue and the adipose tissue. So areolar and adipose tissue, which are said to be loose connective tissue. And the dense connective tissue, which is made up of tendon and ligament. So tendon and ligament are said to be dense connective tissue. Now let us study about loose connective tissue, that is one is areolar, or it can be called as spongy connective tissue. So this areolar connective tissue which link and support other tissue and organs of the body. Here you can see in the picture skin and muscle which are connected with the loose connective tissue. So areolar connective tissue made up of three components. So those are matrix, cells and the fibers. So if we see the matrix, so matrix, it is a diagrammatic view of the areolar connective tissue. So matrix, you can see the arrow which is showing the matrix. So which is homogeneous transparent substances. So matrix is said to be the homogeneous transparent substances. And if we see the cells of this tissue, you can see different types of cells here. So let us see one by one what are those different types of cells in the tissue. So in that one, the first one is fibroblast cell. You can see the arrow which is showing fibroblast cell. So this fibroblast cell, you can see, which is larger in size and quite elongated cells with the branched ends. You can see the branched ends in this cell, and it consists of granules in the cytoplasm, hence granular cytoplasm we can say, and it consists of oval nucleus. So the important function of the fibroblast cell is to secrete fibers and matrix. So we have two types of fibers here, white and yellow fibers, which are secreted by the fibroblast cells, and even fibroblast which secrete matrix in the tissue. And the second important cell is the mast cell, or you can see cells in plural. So the mast cells in turn produces heparin, histamine and serotonin. So the important function of the mast cell is which play very important role in allergy and anaphylaxis and are involved in wound healing and defense against pathogens. And the third type of cell is the macrophages. So the macrophages, which are often larger cells and phagocytic in function. That means engulfing the foreign particles. That phenomena is also called as phagocytosis. And the other type of the cells of this tissue is adipocytes. Adipocytes which contain lipids. So this is about the different types of cells of areolar connective tissue. So let us see about the other component, that is fibers. Here you can see fibers are of two types. Those are white fibers and yellow fibers, which are distinguishable. So let us see the differences between the white and yellow fibers now. So white fibers which are white in color, whereas in yellow fibers you can see these are yellow in color. So white fibers wavy in structure, yellow fibers which are linear in structure. White fibers present in bundles, whereas yellow fibers present in single. White fibers which are said to be unbranched fibers, where you can see Y-shaped branches in the yellow fibers. So white fibers were made up of collagen and the yellow fibers made up of elastin. So because of the collagen, it gives rigidity, whereas yellow fibers because of elasticity, because of elastin, which gives elasticity. So these are the differences between the white fibers and the yellow fibers. So this is about the areolar connective tissue. So areolar connective tissue made up of three components: matrix, cells and the fibers. So another important type of loose connective tissue is the adipose tissue. So the main function of the adipose tissue is to store fat, and it is located mostly beneath the skin, and it is composed of cells. The cells of the adipose tissue is called as adipocytes. So which can, I have told you already, which can store fat in these cells. So if you can see the appearance of the adipocytes, which gives signet ring appearance. This is about the two important types of loose connective tissue, that is areolar and adipose tissue. So let us study about the functions of this adipose tissue. So it acts as a source of energy which helps in the providing the energy. It acts as cushions for the vital organs. which give insulation to the body, and it is the solvent for vitamin K, E, D, A, often said to be the fat soluble vitamins. So these are the functions of adipose tissue. Now let us see about the dense connective tissue. So dense connective tissue can notice fibers and fibroblasts which are compactly packed in it. So dense connective tissue again of two types. Dense regular tissue. Here you can see the diagrammatic view of the dense regular tissue, where in this orientation of fibers shows a regular pattern. The fibers oriented in a regular pattern, and the collagen fibers which are present in rows between many parallel bundles of fibers here. So dense regular tissue of two types, you can see tendons and the ligament. So tendons and ligaments are said to be the dense connective tissue. Of course, dense regular tissue we can say. So let us see about dense regular connective tissue, and that the first one is the tendon. So tendon, which is formed of bundles of collagen or white fibers. So tendon is formed of bundles of collagen, or you can say the white fibers which are made up of collagen. So this tendon, where you can see this connective tissue which attaches bone to muscle. That means between bone to muscle, the connective tissue which helps in the attachment of bone and muscle is the tendon. And now you can see ligament. So ligament which attaches bone to bone. The connective tissue between bone to bone, which is a ligament. So ligament is formed of bundles of elastin, or you can say elastic or yellow fibers. So because of this, which prevent dislocation and provide flexibility between the bones. This is about the tendon and ligament. If we see the differences between these two, you can see tendon attaches bone to muscles, whereas the ligament attaches bone to bone. Tendon formed of bundles of collagen fibers, whereas the ligament formed of bundles of elastin or elastic fibers. These are the two major differences between tendon and ligament. So if we see what about dense irregular tissue. So here you can see in the dense irregular tissue, fibroblast and many fibers are oriented differently. You can see the orientation is different here between the fibroblast and the fibers of the tissue. This tissue is present beneath the skin. This is about dense irregular tissue. So to this we have studied about the first type of connective tissue, that is connective type proper, which consists of loose and dense connective tissue. So loose connective tissue which is of which consists of areolar and adipose tissue, and dense connective tissue again of two types, dense regular, which consists of tendon and ligament, and the dense irregular tissue. This is about the first type of the connective tissue, that is the connective type proper. So next one is the skeletal type of connective tissue and the fluid type of connective tissue. And this skeletal type which consists of bone and cartilage, and the fluid type which consists of blood and the lymph. In these cartilage, bone and blood, these are said to be specialized connective tissues. Now let us study one by one now. Cartilage. So which is a skeletal type of connective tissue. It is present in nose tip, ear pinna, and between the adjacent vertebrae of our vertebral column. So if we see the structure of the cartilage, here we go with the structure. Here the cartilage consists of matrix, and this matrix outerly externally covered by fibrous connective tissue layer, and that layer is called as perichondrium. You can see there is a labeling which is called as perichondrium. Here is the matrix. Matrix is covered by the fibrous connective tissue layer which is called as perichondrium. So it is made up of polysaccharides rich in chondrin protein. So it is made up of polysaccharide. Perichondrium is a layer, fibrous connective tissue layer, which is made up of polysaccharide which is rich in chondrin protein. So inside in the matrix there are spaces where you can see the spaces are the lacuna, or I can say lacunae in plural form. So lacuna or lacunae are the spaces where chondroblasts are located. So spaces in that space is a lacuna which consists of chondroblasts. So here is the lacuna. Inside the lacuna, chondroblast you can notice. Here the chondroblasts. So chondroblast which in turn form chondrocytes. Chondrocytes are the cells of cartilage. So the cells of cartilage are called chondrocytes, produced from chondroblast. Chondroblast which are seen in the spaces in the matrix called lacunae. Each lacunae has 2 to 8 half-moon shaped chondrocytes. Chondroblast in turn secretes chondrin protein, making it stiff but yet flexible. So now if you see the bone here, the skeleton is dancing. Then you can think bone which is living or dead tissue. Yes, of course, bone is a living tissue. And it is the hardest tissue in the body of animals. So there are about 206 bones in a body. Over 300 bones at birth. So after birth, 300 bones reduces to 206 by its fusion. So the smallest bone in the body is said to be stapes or stirrup. You can see in the middle ear. So human middle ear consists of 3 bones, and those are called as ear ossicles. These are smallest bone. You can see among these 3 smallest bones, that is 3 ear ossicles, the stapes which is still smallest bone. So it is found in the middle ear. And the longest bone is the femur bone or the thigh bone. If we see the characteristics of bone, now which is a very hard and non-pliable matrix and ground substance it consists of. The matrix is rich in calcium salts and collagen fibers which give the bone its strength. Bone which provide structural frame of human body and support and protect the soft tissues and organs of the body. The bone cells are called osteocytes. So we had studied about cartilage. The cells of cartilage called chondrocytes. Here the cells of bone called as osteocytes, which are also present in the cavity called lacunae, which is a fluid-filled cavity. The bone which can sustain the body weight, and it is attached with skeletal muscle which meant for locomotion. Bone consists of bone marrow inside, and it is the site of production of blood cells. So if we want to study the complete structure of the bone, we need to take a TS of bone, that is transverse section of the bone. If you can see, you can notice many circular units. So these circular units called as osteons, or it can be called as Haversian system. Each osteon, entire unit is called as osteon. Each osteon contains a central canal. You can see at the center there is a canal. That canal is called as Haversian canal. So Haversian canal is surrounded by matrix. You can see around the central canal, it is surrounded by the matrix which composed of ossin, and it is arranged in concentric layers. Matrix which is arranged in concentric layers called lamellae, which consist of ossin. Between the lamellae, you can see these concentric layers. Here between these layers, there is a fluid-filled space. That space is called as lacunae. Each lacunae, which consists of osteocyte, or it can be called as bone cell. And you can see hair-like structures there. These are said to be the canaliculi. These are the passageways that connect the osteocytes, that is the bone cells, with each other, which are arranged in the concentric layers, and with the central canal. So here is the longitudinal section of the bone. So there is a central canal. You can see here the central canal of the Haversian system. Central canal is called as Haversian canal, which is present in the Haversian system, that is a circular unit. In each circular unit at its center, you can see this central canal, or it can be called as Haversian canal. The Haversian canal of one Haversian system is interconnected with the other central canal of the another Haversian system with the help of a transverse canal. This transverse canal is called as Oxman's canal. That is about the skeletal type of tissue. Now let us see the fluid connective tissue. So fluid connective tissue of two types, that is blood and lymph. So if we see the blood, which is said to be the most important circulating fluid in the body and helps in the transport of various substances in the body. And the blood is a viscous fluid, heavier than water and salty taste. Blood composed of 55% plasma and 45% of blood cells. You can see in the test tube the upper layer straw colored, which is said to be the plasma, which constitute about 55%, and the bottom of the test tube you can see dark colored, which consists of 45% of blood cells. So the plasma, as I told you, which is of straw colored fluid, slightly alkaline, viscous fluid. So 45% of the blood, as I told you, composed of blood cells. And the blood cells are also called as blood corpuscles or formed elements, and it is composed of blood cells are made up of RBCs, or I can say red blood cells, WBCs, white blood cells, and the platelets. So let us see red blood cells, or can be called erythrocytes. So if we see the shape of the RBC, in all vertebrates except mammals, RBC is oval biconvex and nucleated. In mammals except camel, which is of circular, biconcave and enucleated or non-nucleated RBC. So RBC consists of a respiratory pigment which helps in the transport of respiratory gases. That pigment is called hemoglobin. So if you see the leukocytes or the WBCs, these are colorless, non-pigmented, amoeboid, nucleated and polymorphism. You can say different morphological cells in case of leukocytes. So types of leukocytes classified on the basis of cytoplasmic granules. That is agranulocytes and granulocytes. In the total leukocyte, agranulocytes constitute about 35% and granulocytes constitute about 65%. So agranulocytes of two types, monocytes and lymphocytes. Granulocytes of three types, eosinophils, basophils and neutrophils. So the third type of blood cells, it is of platelets, or I can say thrombocytes. This platelets which helps in blood clotting, or I can say for blood coagulation, that is clotting of blood. So second fluid type of connective tissue, which is of lymph, will be circulating in the lymphatic system in the body. So if you see the general properties of lymph, it is white color connective tissue, translucent alkaline fluid, present in lymph vessel as that of blood vessels, and it is present between the tissues and blood capillaries. So lymph is composed of plasma with less protein, calcium and phosphorus. Leukocytes present chiefly, that is lymphocytes, in the lymph. RBCs, platelets and some proteins which are absent in the lymph. This is about the connective tissue. So if you can see this video, you can see I have explained in depth. Depth in the sense to make you to understand the concept clearly, have included extra things, extra concepts. So if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.